Notts fail to capitalise on early pressure as Stevens scores 88. Where relegation is concerned for Nottinghamshire, it's now become a question of when, not if. The right combination of results this round of the Specsavers County Championship could see the side's increasingly inevitable relegation confirmed with matches left to play. They, incidentally, have gone winless all season, unable to convert some impressive form in the shorter format competitions into improved performances with the red ball. Kent aren't about to do them any favours though, and with fair weather set at Trent Bridge, they contest the toss and win the right to bat first. Daniel Bell-Drummond and Zach Crawley were the men tasked with setting a platform for the visitors. But Notts would win the first battle of the day. Crawley trapped LBW to Fletcher for 3 in just the 5th over. That proved to be a false dawn, however, as Bell-Drummond and Cox put together a partnership to guide Kent past 50, their own contribution passing the half-century in the 30th over of the day. Cox, though, would fall to Ashwin, LBW for 22. Billings then joined him, contributing just 4 runs before he edged the Indian international to Mullaney. That wicket saw lunch called, the pair neck and neck after the first session with the score 78 for 3. Bell-Drummond had been the linchpin to his side's start and found himself on the cusp of a half-century, but he'd be unable to reach the milestone, pressing forward to an Ashwin delivery, only for his back foot to momentarily leave the crease. Moores made no mistake with the stumping opportunity. Ashwin was bowling beautifully and shredding the Kent lineup. He picked up another, bowling Ollie Robinson with one that went straight on to the top of off stump. But the Notts attack couldn't build on the momentum generated by the spinner, as Coon and Stevens built a useful partnership for Kent. Coon reached his 50 as the score edged closest to 200. He'd finally be removed by Patterson White, bowled for 56, a crucial knock for his side. Stevens was undeterred, and joined by debutant Marcus O'Riordan, he set about taking Kent past 200. The pair made their way through to tea at 211 for 6. Stevens would reach his own half-century as the evening session got underway, but would lose his partner soon after. Marcus O'Riordan caught by Mullaney off Patterson White for 12. Ollie Rayner helped Kent to 250, batting well alongside the set Stevens. But he'd go 2, caught behind off Coughlin for 26. Harry Podmore added 11 before he too fell to Coughlin. Stevens and Milne saw the side to 300 before the Kent veteran would finally fall for 88. Coughlin with another, Kent all out for 304. But Stevens wasn't done there. Notts had 12 overs of play left to negotiate, and the Kent man would strike early. Libby removed for 1, trapped LBW. Milnes then struck with a great ball to remove Chris Nash's off stump. Notts would negotiate the remaining overs without further loss, heading into the close of play at 35 for 2. Once again, the home side had turned the screw on their visitors, only to let that pressure slip at the crucial moment. They'd bowled well in spells, but had no answer for Kent's counter-attack. The loss of 2 wickets late on left them reeling, and they're once again facing an uphill battle to get a foothold in this game. Billings' century keeps Kent in control after another Notts collapse. Kent headed into day 2 pleased with their efforts on the opening day of play at Trent Bridge. Nottinghamshire had enjoyed periods of success with the ball in hand, Ashwin in particular causing problems. But the hosts, however, had failed to take advantage, and Kent had found a way back into the match through veteran Darren Stevens. His knock of 88 helped the side recover to 304 all out, but the exertions of his day 1 heroics perhaps got the better of him with this ball. But Harry Podmore would find an early breakthrough, Slater edging through to Ollie Robinson to depart for 20. He'd have another as Notts past 50, a smart return catch low down seeing an end to Ben Duckett's innings. Night watchman Luke Fletcher had stuck around throughout the morning, but his vigil was brought to an end by Milnes, Crawley taking a good catch in the slips. Nottinghamshire regrouped and managed to play their way through to lunch, the score 104 for 5. The prolonged respite afforded by a rain-soaked interval will be all too brief. Stevens, back into the attack after lunch, found Mulaney's pads, a first wicket in the day, and a 500th in first-class cricket. He'd have another soon after. Rayner with the catch, Patterson-White out for 11 as the dreaded Nelson struck again. It'd have another victim, no runs added to the total as Ashwin was trapped in front by Podmore. Moores at least helped Notts pass the old superstitious number, but became Stevens' fourth victim of the innings, out LBW. And before long, the Kent all-rounder had his fifer, Coughlin hitting one straight to Podmore, Notts all out for 124, 180 runs behind their visitors. Luke Fletcher would fire back at Kent as they got their second innings up and running. Bell Drummond the man to go, feathering an edge to slip to depart for 8. Coughlin would come into the attack with Kent nearing 50, and he'd immediately strike, albeit in unintended circumstances. Jordan Cox struck on the bottom hand from a rising delivery, forced to retire hurt. Despite some early joy, Notts found themselves struggling to create chances, as Billings and Crawley guided their side towards 100. They reached tea at 95 for 1, the lead now 275. Kent would head into the evening session in fine fettle. They'd reach the hundreds shortly after the resumption of play, and Crawley quickly batted his way to a half-century, Kent really turning the screw. The pair reached 150, Billings now chasing his own half-century. He didn't have to wait long, reaching the landmark in the next over. Crawley would eventually go for 82, bowled by Fletcher. Notts found a little bit of a groove, and before long they had another, Fletcher seeing Coon caught behind for 5. Ollie Robinson followed, LBW to the impressive Ashwin. And Darren Stevens finally faltered after an impressive couple of days. He too trapped in front by the Indian international. O'Riordan stuck with Billings, the Kent T20 captain looking to build on his 50, but the debutant fell, bowled by Patterson-White, with Kent leading by 407. Rayner would fall to Ashwin, bowled without scoring. But Billings ploughed on, his century reached with a boundary. He'd depart the next ball, however, Patterson-White holding on to the return catch. That wicket signalled the end of play for the day, one that Kent will again be proud of. Nottinghamshire look a side shot of confidence. Even the impressive Ashwin's shoulders began to slump as the day wore on. They need a miracle to find a way back into this game, but even divine intervention looks like it couldn't be enough to prevent Notts from slipping down into Division 2. Stevens inspires Kent to crushing victory which leaves Notts all but relegated. Darren Stevens had been the star for Kent in the first 2 innings of this match, 88 runs to his name and a fifer with the ball, but when the side returned to the middle for their second innings, he'd taken a back seat as Sam Billings scored his first 100 after a tough 6-month spell on the sidelines injured. That innings had allowed the visitors to take advantage, following the Nottinghamshire collapse that had seen them bowled out for 124. And when play did come to a close on day 2, Kent were 236 for 8, their lead 416. Podmore and Cox, returning after a blow to the hand saw him retire hurt earlier on, strode out to the middle to resume the innings. Ashwin suffered at the hands of Podmore, 3 consecutive boundaries helping Kent past 250. But he'd depart soon after though, bowled by the Indian international as he attempted another slog. He'd strike again to dismiss Cox, trapped LBW for 20. A fifer picked up in the process, Kent all out for 259, Notts requiring 440 to avoid a 9th defeat of the season. Stephen Mulaney and Ben Duckett were the men tasked with getting the chase started, and for a time they applied themselves well. But that unbeaten start proved to be a false dawn, as with just 27 runs on the board, Mulaney misjudged a Stevens delivery, leaving the ball only for it to remove his middle stump. 2 balls later, Stevens removed the experienced Chris Nash, trapped LBW for a duck. and Podmore would make it 3. Bowling across the left-handed ducket, he got one to nip back in and take the openers off stump. Ben Slater would stick around long enough to see Notts past 50, but as has been the case so often this year, Notts would lose another wicket cheaply. It would be a 500th in first-class cricket for the veteran Stevens, the all-rounder enjoying a purple patch in these closing stages of the season. They'd be 5 down for less than 100 runs not long after that. Libby's off-stump sent cartwheeling away by Milnes. That wicket saw lunch called, Notts slumping to 91 for 5 at the interval. Ashwin and Moores would steer their side to 100, but for the first time all day, Notts began to frustrate Kent. Ashwin and Coughlin holding back the tide as they began to apply themselves. Their determined batting took its toll, on their equipment at least. Coughlin's bat giving up the ghost, just as so many of his colleagues had earlier on in the day. Ashwin had been the glimmer of hope for the entire match for Notts, and that good work was rewarded with a 50. In this match, there was no keeping Darren Stevens out of the game, and he returned to the attack to finally end the partnership. Coughlin caught behind for Robinson's 50th take of the season. Ashwin would go without any change to the score, looping Rayner to Kuhn. The pair would combine again to dismiss Luke Fletcher, the big Notts bowler charging the Kent spinner to his detriment. Stevens would wrap up his excellent display across all 3 days by picking up the final wicket. Jake Ball edged to Robinson, Stevens with back-to-back fifers, and 10 wickets in a match for just the second time in his career. The 227-run margin of victory didn't flatter Kent. They'd been better in all departments than their hosts, and the win ensured that they are now mathematically safe from dropping into Division 2. Notts are not yet relegated, but their fate will be sealed on Friday if Warwickshire, who lead Essex at Edgbaston, either win or draw their match.